Hello and welcome to the Slingshot channel, to the long-awaited duel. Mey Interceptor versus Steamboat Stinger M10. Let me show you their features. So, the Stinger M10. I originally never wanted to review this product because a while ago I gave up distribution of the Steamboat products. They had nothing to do with the product, but with the company. In any case, I think that it should be fair to not review competitors' products, not if you're financially involved. And I am financially involved. I mean, the Stinger, I have an interest that they sell as few of them as possible, and I sell the most of the Interceptors and the Revo 7 as possible. Sorry for the loud voice, it's just my driveway is getting redone. Anyway, why have I still decided to now review it? Because I expected the same kind of respect from the other side, from Steamboat, but that wasn't the case. Their Steamfluencers got to work and are actually currently bringing like 3 parts of a review for the Interceptor. And I think it's extremely biased and very unfair. They really try to nitpick things because it's a crossbow, there's basically nothing wrong with it, I think. But of course, if they do it, then I will do the same. So, welcome to the most unfair review video I've ever done. I never said that the Stinger is a bad product, and it never was a bad product. I mean, I invented it after all, so of course I like it. But of course, large parts of the M10 development were done without my advice because we already separated and went different ways. So a lot of the new features I've never seen before, so I was kind of curious. And I will, of course, try to judge them as objectively as I can. But still, keep in mind, I am very, very biased. So, don't listen to me. Okay, so let's start with the important things first, the optics. And I have to say, I still love the Stinger design. I mean, I always loved it, and I think it's really, really a masterpiece. I love the shape of the handle here. I love the overall tactical look. And they actually have probably even increased that appeal to me with the M10 design. So this looks really, really tactical, and I love it. And I really think that this is one of the prettiest pistol crossbows ever. Anyway, I also think that the magazine in itself is not a bad idea because, I mean, from the haptics, you put it in, it's easy, it locks in place. So far, with no arrows in it, I really think it's cool. Although, what I don't like so much is that they had to give up the Picatinny rail that used to be on the lid, of the Stinger beforehand. So you could attach like a small scope, which I also loved optically, like a scope on a small crossbow looks just great. This is lost, so now you have to install a red dot maybe, a small red dot, and you have to install it in the front. That's okay, but optically, I think a small scope looks so much better. Anyway. What I also love is that they integrated a folding stock adapter here, so it's part of the product, and it actually has very little play. I mean, the entire rear handle, of course, has a little bit play, but that's the case with all of them, so it's nothing special. They have an adjustable cheek rest, which I also like, even though, of course, people that have very short arms would probably have a problem with this because this adds length, of course, the folding adapter. And if you set it to the maximum, even for me, it's a bit long, right? So, anyway, they also included string stoppers. I'm not sure if those are really needed for like pistol crossbows like this, but it won't harm, that's for sure. So, what I really love is how they integrated the change of the throwing limb set, where you just push this out, then you fold open the whole thing. You can take out this, and this is like the fastest limb set change that I've ever seen. This is just, and no other pistol crossbow on the market has this, and I really like that. So my head is off to the designers of this because that is an ingenious feature. I mean, changeable limb sets are now standard, but typically it takes way more time to do this. This is the fastest. Anyway, so overall, my first impression is rather good. What I don't really like, but it's not Steamboat's fault, is that they added this kind of belt hook here, where you can attach a belt, a carrying belt. I don't like those in general because they're always rattling. They're just always a bit loose. It's not Steamboat's fault, it's just the way how they are, but I don't like things on my crossbows that rattle. But you can probably remove it if you don't like it. Anyway, let's start filling the magazine. Let's start loading it. I have here 10 original Steamboat bolts. I also have go-gun bolts, but let's do the steam bow because obviously that's what the manufacturer recommends. So you push it in, but then it snaps right out, it doesn't hold. I read about this, and in the internet they say that you need to put in like at least 4 or 5 before they start to hold, but it's really bad because I kind of have to press my finger on it while loading, otherwise they're gonna fly right out again. Gonna have 4 in, and yes, it's true, it's now seems to hold. 5. Okay, 6. 7. Okay. It's getting pretty tight in there. That's not necessarily bad. Okay, last one. Okay. Alright, well, that's a tight squeeze. I'm not sure. Okay, no, it does fit. Alright, so now I got them in. But in the internet they say that they're often not holding when you just touch them wrongly. So let's test this. Let's put my thumb on here. Not on the release button, but here. And alright. Yeah, that's... yeah, I mean, come on. That's... Seriously, Steambow? That is what you're selling people, and you say this is tactical, and you sell them belts where they put the magazines in so you can reload on the run? I mean, seriously? That's not gonna happen. I mean, they just pop out if you touch them wrongly. I'm sure that if you drop them, they will also all pop out. Let's test the go-gun bolts. Maybe those are better. Maybe it's just a thickness issue. All right. Oh. Yeah, it's the same thing. I mean, these bolts are standardized, so they all have the same size and diameter. And still, again, I have to press my finger on it and kind of force them down. Okay. All right. After number 4, it seems to hold. Okay. It makes my life a lot easier. Okay, now got 8 of them in, and it seems already pretty packed. Let's see. Yeah. That's a bolt fountain. That's a crossbow in itself. But that's not, seriously, not a magazine that you can sell to people at an expensive price. I mean, and I also don't think that they're mechanically sound, because this one, I mean, it's brand new. It already seems like the lid is going off, and this one also already shows signs that it's not fitting. So I have a third one, which is pretty much the same. Yeah. Okay, now let's inspect the Mey Interceptor. And I love the look of it. I mean, I love the look of the Stinger, but I also love the look of the Interceptor. I think both are really cool, but very different, which is amazing, which is really good. They're not clones of each other. Now this one, of course, lives from this magazine that fits in from below. And this really nice feature, because it's so much like a firearm. And this is what most people really want. And I would not say I'm an exception. I love that. I also think that the Picatinny rail, the long Picatinny rail here, is really good. It's really close to the groove, so you can really have a close distance between your optics and the arrow, which is good for accuracy and aiming and everything. What I really love about this thing is that you can keep your hands while repeating the gun. You can keep them where they belong on both handles. So you can repeat them, and you unlock this by just pressing this button here. So it's like this here, and this is really, really nice. I don't have to change my hand. I don't have to practice this often. It also works really well from the shooting from the hip. Not a problem at all. So this is a feature that I really adore. Also have a safety, and also this can be done from both sides. Now changing the throwing arm is a little bit more complicated. It also has a quick exchange, but it's not as easy as on the Stinger. So what you do is you press this button here, and then you can pull out this little pin here. Then you can remove the entire front, and then you clamp the cocking levers here back, and then you can just easily, easily remove the throwing limb set and install this one or another one or whatever. Now you can bring back the cocking levers. Oops. Slide this thing back on. Put the pin in. And you're ready to go. So this is not impossibly hard to do, but it is not as easy as it is for the Stinger. Also, I need to mention that the rear stock, actually you can install a folding adapter, just like a standard AR-15 parts that you can also get even from Mey directly, the producer part. But you actually get two different adapters for the AR-15 stock here. So you get one for the low mounting position, which is here, which is really nice if you have a low scope that mounted, or a red dot that's really low on this here. But of course you can also mount this in the upper position, then it looks much more like on an AR-15, which I like. But then you also need a higher scope, so like a big scope with a higher mount, since otherwise you have to put your cheek sideways on the rear stock, which is not a good idea. But you get both and it's included in the price. Yeah, overall, I think both crossbows are really pretty, but I'm sure that there are so many individual opinions about this that I won't judge it. Okay, then let's load the magazine of the Interceptor. You can remove it easily, of course. And now I have here a total of 18 bolts, because that's how many should fit in this magazine. I got 10 steamboat bolts and 8 go-gun bolts. They are both supposed to fit. But this is of course a much nicer feeling than for the steamboat, and it sits in here firmly, it won't pop out, and it's just actually fun to load this thing, since it's kind of satisfying with this clack, don't you think? Right? So keep loading it. This feels great, nothing pops out, everything is firmly in place. Okay. Now I have 10 of them in there, and that will be the limit for the steamboat. Now I can keep loading it, because this is an 18-shot magazine and not a 10-shot magazine. All right. Keep loading. Keep loading. Keep loading. Keep loading. 2 more. 1. It still feels really great. And they're all in, 18 bolts. You can tell it's heavy, it's not really heavy. And you can also see there's these little windows in here, so you can easily check how many bolts are still in there. Now this, you can squeeze it, you could turn it, you can slap on it, these won't pop out. They're just in there very firmly, and they're held back by these sliders here. And these little sliders here keep them in place, like they're pinched in between a pliers. And then every time you repeat the weapon, then the cocking levers will open it for just 1 bolt. So these are actually holding them in place. And the only way to unload it is manually pressing down on these both levers. And look what happens then. They all pop out like they should, because the string easily and seamlessly presses them out. Now that is a reliable magazine that I really, really like. Okay, so the magazine in itself, I think it's a small masterpiece of German engineering. I mean, look at these springs here. Those are like looped springs, and actually you can see that there's a little notch here. This is because that's where they're connected, so they're looped. And they go over little rollers here, and those make it possible to fill the entire magazine to the bottom without wasting any time for the spring. So I think this is ingenious. I think they should probably sell it to firearms manufacturers, because you could squeeze in so many more magazines in a given space, so many more rounds in a given space. These sliders here, of course, well, you have to say that maybe it's over-engineered, but you should not forget that the magazine is the heart of a repeating crossbow. Reliability comes 95% from the magazine. If the magazine is not well made, you will not have a reliable crossbow. So therefore, I think it's a piece of engineering, and it's expensive, absolutely, much more expensive than the steamboat ones, but boy, is it more valuable. I, for one, love it, and again, I'm very, very biased. Looks is a Draw Limb Exchange M10 magazine, clearly Interceptor. Okay, so I've carefully loaded the magazine. I still don't like how it looks. I mean, it looks like not very tidy and kind of, funny in there, but anyway, I'm treating it carefully because I want to shoot. Now what I like about the Stinger is that they have actually some kind of iron sights, even with some kind of light picking little fiberglass rod in the front. Now the rear sight is something that I got from Reini Rossmann, who designed it, and he said it works better this way. We will find out. Now I will pop in the magazine and then I will try to do 10 shots as quickly as possible. Shall we? Okay. So I have to say that all 10 shots were without problems, and which is good. I mean, the magazine I think is horrible when you load it, and probably also when you carry it, but it seems to be fine and reliable once it's in the crossbow, which is, of course, most important. So the weapon shot fine. What I really didn't like is, again, I knew this before, that you have to change the position of your hand. I don't like that very much. I'm sure there's people that can do it a lot faster than I can do it. Plus also I'm now used to crossbows where you don't have to do it, where you can keep your hand here. But all in all, it passed the shooting test. All right, now we do the same with Interceptor. So of course much easier to fill the magazine, and it also looks much more clean. This now has 18 shots. We will try to do 18 shots. And again, of course, we will then stop the time at 10 to compare both crossbows with each other. Shall we? Okay, one more I think. Yeah. So this was much more comfortable. You have fewer things that you have to do in order to shoot. And I think that clearly this is an advantage of the Interceptor.
Regarding the shot frequency, clearly the Interceptor wins. Clearly.
One more thing that I really hate on the magazine of the M10 is that I cannot remove a magazine that is not completely empty without losing like the remaining arrows in it. So I'll show you. I loaded 6 arrows. Let's shoot 3 and then take the magazine out. Shall we? Okay, it's not really necessary because we know it's going to happen, but for fairness, let's do the same thing with the Interceptor. We have 6 shots in the mag. We'll shoot 3 and then take it out. Okay. Okay, now we will have to test the shot speed. Now it is expected that the M10 delivers the better results here because it's standard. In standard it comes with the advanced throwing limb set, and this is spec'd at 75 pounds of a draw force, whereas the Interceptor only is spec'd at 60 pounds. Of course, for both crossbows you can get weaker and stronger limbs. We will test those later on very extensively. But first of all, now it's expected that this is a little stronger. We will shoot the Gogun new carbon precision bolts. Those have a carbon fiber shaft and a heavy tip. They weigh just under 9 grams. Okay. Okay. 54 meters per second. Okay, so we're getting about between 52 and 55 meters per second. That's between 12 and 13 and a half joules, something like that. Okay, now change to the Mey Interceptor. Everything else is unchanged. Okay, so to my great surprise, this came back stronger, even though it has the weaker limb set, 60 pounds versus 75 pounds. But this came out between 56 meters per second and 60 meters per second. So that's ranging between 14 joule and 16.2 joule. So it is more powerful, even though it's weaker. How is that possible? I think we have to inspect the limb sets now. And we will do this scientifically with a machine because, as you know, I'm super biased and therefore I have to employ a machine. Otherwise, everybody will say I'm a liar.
Regarding the energy, clearly the Interceptor is more powerful, it's just better.
Okay, let us now talk about throwing limb sets. I mean, for the Stinger, there's actually 6 different versions. So there is a 30-pound version, a 55-pound version, which is standard for the normal Stinger AR2. Then there is a 75-pound version, which is standard on the M10. Then there is a 90-pound version and a 120-pound version. There's also a 150-pound version that I don't have. So I'm skipping the 150, stopping at the 120-pound. For the Interceptor, there are only 4 different limb sets. There is a 30-pound, a 60-pound, a 90-pound, and a 120-pound version. And they're physically pretty much the same, so they use the same strings, same everything. And actually, the distance between here, the inner side and the center of the limb, and the fully cocked position is 21 centimeters. So I will mark this here with a little bit of tape and an arrow. I will exceed this very slightly because, of course, the trigger system eats up a little bit of the string itself. And I will do the same for all of the limb sets that we are testing. Okay, let us start with the CQ, and that is the 30-pound version. So this is supposed to have 35 pounds, I guess, and it only has 33 pounds. That is acceptable. So now we are using the standard one for the AR2, which is a 55-pound nominal value. We now have 52 pounds, so it's a little less than it's supposed to be. So this is the advanced, and it's supposed to have 75 pounds. So we're getting 61 pounds, which is a very significant difference. So this is the Pro, and it's supposed to have 90 pounds. So this has 60 pounds. So this is definitely not enough. I mean, it should have 90 pounds and it only has 60 pounds. So this is the Magnum, which is supposed to have 120 pounds. So this has, well, 94, 95 pounds, which is significantly less than it should have. So basically, these three, I mean the 55, the 75 and the 90 pound version, are almost the same, within a little bit of a tolerance. And then I checked it, and I found that all the dimensions, all the physical dimensions are the same. So they have 4.2 millimeters in the middle and like 5.4 millimeters in the end, so a little bit thicker. And also all the parameters are identical. I just think these are identical throwing limbs, even though they shouldn't be identical. So I don't know if that was just maybe an error in their production, that they just printed the wrong stuff on it. But what I can tell you is that if I would have paid good money for this, I would complain. And I can only recommend using a little bit of a measuring tool like this one here and check out if your 75 and 90 pound versions have a thickness of 4.2 millimeters, because if they have, then they aren't 75 and 90 pound, then they are just 55 pound versions.
Starting with the Interceptor limb set, 30 pounds.
So this is the 30 pound Mey Interceptor one, and it ends up having 32 pounds. So now we have the 60 pound one. And it ends up having exactly 60 pounds. So now we have the 90 pound one. And it has exactly 90 pounds. So now we're having the 120 pound limb set. And it has exactly 120 pounds. So I think the results for the Mey Interceptor throwing limb sets are excellent. They're almost there to the dot. I mean, the 30 pound one was just a little stronger than it's supposed to have, but the difference was really, really minor. So I really think that, and it's also clear that the thickness absolutely makes a big difference. I mean, this here is so much thinner than the ones on the 120 pound, and the others are of course in the middle. And that's logical. I mean, physically it has to have more material to have more strength if it's the same material, which I'm assuming it is. Anyway, I think that here we have a clear head start for the Mey Interceptor, because if you buy these throwing limb sets, you get exactly what's been promised to you.
For the throwing limbs, crystal clear, the Interceptor wins, hands down.
Okay, now for the accuracy test. Both crossbows will be firmly mounted to this table here that actually is solid and firm in the ground. I actually put concrete in it, and therefore it does, because it's a wooden frame, it does shift a little bit, but it always comes back to the same position. This is not a perfect shooting table, but it's as perfect as I can do, and I'm sure it gives me better results than if I shoot just from open stance. And in any case, it's equal conditions for both crossbows. We will do 8 shots with each gun. All right, that's like the group size that I know from the Stinger. It's about the size of your hand. And it's not bad. I mean, it's just only a pistol crossbow. So, okay, now we'll do the same test with the Mey Interceptor. Same table, same distance, same mounting position, same shooter. Okay, so I think this is a much tighter group. Yes, definitely. Should be shifting a little bit to the right. We have some flyers here, but most of them are just here. And I actually think those are actually 9, so I miscounted.
Regarding the accuracy and precision, clearly the Interceptor wins again.
Now we want to also test things like the trigger pull weight of both weapons. And therefore I put on the strongest one, the 120-pound Magnum on here, because we clocked it at 95 true LBS, and we are comparing it to the 90-pound version of the Interceptor that has exactly 90 pounds. So this is supposed to be a little stronger. We will calibrate it first with the Crony and see if the poundage corresponds to the energy that the weapon generates. And then we will also measure the trigger pull weight. .66 meters per second. 66 meters per second again. Okay, now with the Interceptor, with the 90 lb throwing limb set, it should be a little weaker. 75 meters per second. Another 75. Yeah. So it's very solid 75 meters per second, which is between 24 and 25 joule. Okay, so we saw that the Interceptor throwing limbs are significantly more powerful than the ones from the Stinger, even though nominally it is a 120-pound limb set for the Steambow against a 90-pound limb set for the Mey Interceptor. So how is that possible? Well, it's the efficiency, because this has a carbon fiber middle layer and fiberglass outer layers, increasing the efficiency of the limb set very much. Whereas the M10 only has fiberglass only limb sets. They're just not as efficient, as you clearly saw. I mean, even the poundage that we clocked is 96 pounds for the Stinger versus 90 pounds for the Interceptor, and still the Interceptor did much better. Okay, we will now measure the trigger weight, and we're using the Magnum, the 120-pound nominal and 95-pound measured limb set. Okay, now what we've seen is pretty clear. We got like 15 point something pounds, which is really high for the Steambow Stinger, and only 6.3 pounds for the Mey Interceptor. This clearly shows you the superiority of the trigger system that I designed. And of course, I'm super biased. Never forget that.
On the trigger pull, we have a clear winner, the Mey Interceptor.
Time for a conclusion. So first of all, it's absolutely clear who's going to be the winner because, as you know, I'm super biased. But honestly, I mean, I have to say that there's a few advantages of the Stinger. One thing is I love the way how you can exchange the limb set. That's really cool. I also like the folding adapter that is in standard. It's also much lighter. It only weighs 1.8 kilograms, while this is like 3.2, so it's almost twice as heavy. But on the other hand, it's also cheaper. So this is significantly cheaper than this one, clearly. And this one, of course, has very serious advantages too. First of all, it has much larger magazine capacity. Second, it has the ability to mount scopes and other sighting systems that you cannot mount here. Third, it is far more modern from concept because you can actually cock this without changing your hand position. So this is really far more modern. And also, of course, it has more shot energy at the same energy level. Plus also it has really good and very accurately tuned limb sets available. So this is also a true advantage. Yeah, but so those are really, and also of course the shot frequency, because you don't have to change your hand position, is much higher. So you can shoot faster, harder, with the same kind of effort. Those are really clear advantages. Now, this does not mean that this is a bad crossbow, because it really isn't. But there's two things I have to say that I think Steambow needs to address very quickly. First of all, please, Steambow, show me that I was just very unlucky finding my limb sets. And I got them from all different sources, like this one here, like the one that came with the M10. It came with the M10. It's brand new. And the others, I'm not sure how they showed up at my place, but maybe I was just a super unlucky customer. Therefore, please make sure that all your limb sets have the right poundage that you're promising people. Second, guys, do something about these magazines, because they are crap. They really are crap. Those should not exist. Those is actually an embarrassment for your engineering and for your company, and you need to change them so that the arrows don't fall out when you don't want them to fall out. Plus also they need to be reliable. So as I said, you know, not the lids coming off and all this. So re-engineer these magazines, and it's going to make your crossbow so much better.
The M10 is cheaper and also lighter, so it wins there. So the overall result is that the looks is an equal draw. On the limb exchange, the M10 wins. For the magazine, both regarding capacity and also usability, the Interceptor clearly wins. The Interceptor has the higher shot frequency, so it's a winner there. It has more shot energy with the same limbs. Really big difference. The throwing limbs are clearly better regarding the Interceptor. Precision, also the Interceptor wins again. On the trigger pull, the big difference, the Interceptor is loads better.
In any case, I hope you like this, because that's it for today. Thanks, and bye-bye. So let's talk about the trigger lock units in the weapons, because they differ a great deal. So there's a huge difference between the Stinger and the Interceptor, and also like the Revo 7 or the Adder. Because the Stinger uses a so-called string pusher system, where the string is just pushed up over an edge, very simple. And then the Interceptor uses like a hook, so it's a one-piece part with the joint in the middle, and the hook is just lifted upwards, releasing the string. And the Revo 7 and Adder, they have a true like falling trapdoor claw. And all of them have advantages and disadvantages. I've made some wooden samples to demonstrate you how these different lock types work, so that you understand. Let us begin with the Stinger. So this is basically the trigger lock system of the Stinger. Even though this is already the tuning trigger system, which is standard in the M10, the ones in the regular Steambow Stinger are even more simple than this one here. And this works very simple. So as you can see, if you move the trigger here, then this slider goes up and down, like so. And here is this little edge, and if the slider goes up, then it will push the string over this edge and the shot falls. So let us simulate this here with a little bit of rubber and paracord. Okay, so imagine this is the crossbow. Now if I pull the trigger, then it does exactly what it's supposed to do. This has advantages and disadvantages. Certainly an advantage for the manufacturer is that it's really cheap manufacturing. Very few moving parts. It's also very robust because this is not finicky technology. This is very, very simple and it's been used for a long, long time. Of course, it has also serious disadvantages. So there's a lot of friction. The more powerful the limb set, the more friction is here. And you have to push up the string against the friction. Plus also, since that is like left and right, there is a lot of surface where the string will have contact to. And also what happens is that when you push up the string, you give it a little bit of an upwards vector. So it kind of flies up and then it comes down at some point touching the end of the knock side of the bolt, pushing it forward. And this kind of upwards motion is a little bit uncontrolled and therefore it is not great for precision. But of course it is a reliable, functional system. Und hier kann man das ganz gut im Einsatz sehen. Also man sieht hier, wie dieser Schieber hier hochkommt. Ja. Halt genau wie mein Modell. So you can clearly see how this works. Exactly like my little model. So you can clearly see how much surface the string has. And also you can see how sharp the edges are here. It's not that big of a deal, but still, it's there. So this is the regular trigger of a Stinger. So as you can see here, this is just one part. So there is no sliding part. And the problem is that this is a rotational motion, which actually presses the string even harder against the surface of the edge here. And this means that as a result, the trigger resistance is even higher. So this is the system that's used in the Interceptor. As you see, it's a single moving part. It's actually a thing that I have employed many times. I even used it for a slingshot cannon that had super high power and tons of draw force. So this can be scaled down and up as much as you want. It's proven and it's very reliable. So this doesn't even need a spring to return, because the stronger it pulls here, the better it will hold. And now if I press the trigger here, then the shot falls very safely. And as you see, the string does not get an upwards vector, so it stays in line with the arrow the whole time, which is great for precision. This is also mechanically super sturdy. It won't ever break on you, I can pretty much guarantee. The true trigger in the handle of the Interceptor that like breaks open, this one is pushing on this one only. So this is the true trigger. And the trigger in the handle is just a push element for the true trigger. So here is the Interceptor without a magazine, and you can clearly see what happens. You can see that the claw actually goes up to the front, which is what you want, because see on the Interceptor, the groove is on the upper side, not on the lower side. So this means that what you want is the claw actually pulls up the string a little bit, so it's pressed against the groove, which is exactly what you want. You want as much contact to the groove as possible. Whereas on the Stinger, the push-up method means that you push the string away from the groove and then it comes swinging back. So I like this best, but of course I'm also the inventor of this, therefore I'm very biased. So this is the system that is employed in the Ador, for example, but also in the Revo 7. And this is the only one that you can truly call a lock, because what happens is that you have this little claw here and you have a trigger, and if you pull the trigger, then this can swing down like a trapdoor. And this of course guarantees that the friction here is super low. This means that your trigger resistance is really good. So let me show you this in action. Okay, so now the whole thing is cocked, and if you pull the trigger, then the shot falls. Very elegant, very nice, and of course it's been employed for many millions of crossbows. But it also has disadvantages. The main disadvantage is that there is tear and wear. So this means that because when the shot falls, this claw is accelerated at a really high speed. And it then hits the stopper here. It has to, because at some point it has to be stopped. Now this is incredibly bad for the joints and also for the stopper here. And this is what you see on the adder. There's people that are complaining that if they shoot it a lot, I mean really, really a lot, like thousands of shots, at some point they have to replace the entire trigger lock box because it wears out. And that's also the reason why EK Archery for the 180 pound Adder 2.0 system, which has an increased draw resistance, has also reinforced the entire axis for the lock. So the lock is also being reinforced, but it will still have wear because the speed of this and the mass, it's hardened steel, is very high. So this creates a lot of wear on the system. Therefore, I think that the Interceptor system is the best one because, well, I invented it, so I better should think that way. But I think it's a great compromise between a very sturdy, but yet very, very user-friendly system. To show you how this works on the Revo 7, it's the same like on the Adder. We take the entire upper part off so we can see it better. Okay. All right, here you can see the claw. And when I'm cocking the weapon, so this is my fake string here, you actually push it back and then it actually presses against the claw. So now the weapon would be locked. And if I press the trigger, then the claw swings down and is ready for the next repetition. So as you can clearly see, there's like a lot of little springs and everything inside here. It's a far more complicated lock mechanism that is also a little bit more prone to failure and wear, of course. So you can't have everything, you gotta decide.